Are we on? Testing 1, 2. You can hear me? Good. That's half the battle. Welcome, everyone. It's lovely to see. I said to Michael as he walked in, a healthy church is a church where the aisles are full of prams. And so I love it. I love seeing it. And I want to thank Dr. Quinn for inviting his whole family. I think the Doc and Glenda are trying to make their own 144,000. So it's very, very Adventist. So, no, it's great to see everyone. And I want to just thank you for the worship team for leading us in beautiful worship. Were you blessed? Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you. And also these flowers. How amazing do these flowers look? They're just gorgeous. So I've got to say that because my mum's here and she's in charge of the flower team at her church. So, no, I'm joking. I've got it, but they are beautiful. It is amazing what can happen in a church when everyone uses their gifts as a body. And I love that. I want you to open your Bibles to Matthew chapter 8. Matthew chapter 8. If you've got your swords with you, we're going to read Matthew chapter 8, verses 23 to 27. Matthew chapter 8, verses 23 to 27. Then they got in the boat, and his disciples followed him. Without warning, a furious storm came up on the lake, so that the waves swept over the boat. But Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him, saying, "Lord, save us, we're going to drown." He replied, "You of little faith, why are you so afraid?" Then he got up, rebuked the winds and the waves, and it was completely calm. I remember I was working with a very good mate of mine. We were both pastor in a church in Queensland, and so we were into the mission fields. And no, I'm joking, but we were there, and we'd had a really hard week. And so I said, "Mate, it was a Thursday night. I said, we've got no meetings, we've got nothing on tonight, let's go fishing." Now, they call it fishing and not catching for a reason, because I never seem to catch anything. My mate Wes, he calls me the human banana, because supposedly bananas are really bad luck for fishermen. Did you know that? If you're going fishing, you don't take bananas because it's very bad luck. Anyway, he calls me the human banana. Anyway, this night we're going fishing, and we got the boat in, and he parked the car, and I'm driving the boat, ready to go. And then he gets in the boat, and we start to make our way out on the Gold Coast on the river. We're making our way out, and all of a sudden he gets a phone call, and it's his father-in-law. Now, he's got a very good relationship with his father-in-law, because his father-in-law said there's a storm coming. There's a storm alert, and it's coming for the Gold Coast. And so we went, okay. At this point, it was calm. There was no breeze. It was just a normal night on the Gold Coast. And we're thinking, where is this storm coming from? And he said, no. He said, they can come really quickly. So what we did was, we're thinking, what can we do? By the time the storm comes, it's going to be too late. We can't get the boat out of the water. So what we have to do is park the boat somewhere that's safe. We've got to make our way to a safe place. And so we found a big bridge, and it had some pylons in the middle. And what we did was we tied the front of the anchor port, we tied that onto the bridge, and then Wes would drive the boat. And all of a sudden we saw these dark clouds coming. And all of a sudden the wind picked up. And then the rain started to come. And as the wind picked up, the waves started to hit the boat. And all of a sudden, this little boat, it wasn't a big boat, this little boat was being tossed. And my mate Wes was a very good captain and driver, but he was struggling to keep the front of the boat into the wind as the waves came. And I was hanging on, and I'm saying, Lord, we need you. Now, I trusted Wes. I knew him, I knew his skills, and it was fine. But I had this moment where I'm going, I'm scared. I'm in the middle of a river, and I'm scared because I'm not in control. The storm, as quickly as it started, it finished. And all of a sudden, we went from having these waves going over the boat and winds blowing us and rocking us and rain coming in, hitting us. It went from being this crazy motion to all of a sudden being still. And we were both sitting there and we went, wow. That was exciting. It was exciting because we survived. It was exciting because we didn't sink. But I can imagine the disciples at this moment. They're in this fishing boat. This boat that they probably knew was probably one of theirs from their time before they became disciples. And Jesus has said, I want to get away. We need to get away. And so he gets in the boat and the disciples follow him, and then they make their way across the lake. Now, the lake here in Galilee, Sea of Galilee, it's not that big. Has anyone been to Lake Macquarie? Yeah? You've seen Lake Macquarie. You know that you can see from one side of Lake Macquarie to the other. Sea of Galilee is not bigger than Lake Macquarie. But for some reason, there's this place on the sea that can be really unstable so quickly, and it can be very rough. But these fishermen, they're experts. They would have been through storms like this. They would have been through, and they know how to handle it. But the storm is so bad, the storm is so strong, that even they're worried. Even with all their skill and their control, they're worried. The rain is coming down. The sea is coming over. The wind is blowing them. They would have had to put the sails down, little sails that they would have had in this fishing boat, just so they can stay in control. And where is Jesus? Jesus is sleeping. Jesus is sleeping at this moment. Through all this commotion, the disciples all of a sudden go, we cannot handle this. With all our skill, with all our experience, we can't handle this. So they get to a point where now they know they're not in control. And they say, what do they say? The disciples said to him, Lord, save us. We are going to drown. Wonder what would have happened if the disciples had gone to him earlier. If the disciples, in their fighting of the storm, before they were out of control, I wonder what would have happened if they woke Jesus up. Jesus wakes up and he rebukes them. The Bible says he rebukes them. In other words, what he says to them here is quite directed. This is a major thing. This is not a, ye of little faith, why are you so afraid? This is a, ye of little faith, why are you so afraid? He's talking to the disciples and he's gone, haven't you learned anything? Why are you afraid in this storm? Nothing's going to happen to you. I'm in the boat. I'm in the boat. You're going to be safe. Why are you afraid? Are you afraid because you've tried to do everything in your strength? Are you afraid because you're no longer in control? I'm in the boat. And then just to show them how in control God is, he gets up and he rebukes the winds and the waves. One version says he got up and he said, "Peace, be still." And immediately, the wind stops. The waves die down. In fact, the Bible says it became completely calm. You know that feeling, that time on the ocean or the river when there's no wind and it's glassy? It's completely calm. That's how it became. And the disciples went, "Wow, this man, what kind of man is this that even the winds and the waves obey him?" Here we have this story of this storm in their lives where they feel out of control, where they feel like they can't do anything for themselves anymore. And Jesus shows them just how in control he is. I'm preaching this story today, church, because I'm preaching to myself. Because life throws storms at us. And when we have those storms in our life, how do we handle it? I have my human moments. I have my times of doubt. I have those times when I'm going, I feel all alone. I feel out of control. What's happening here? And I go, God, or Jesus, don't you care? I'm drowning. Don't you care? And quite often Jesus goes, hey, have faith. I'm going to ride this storm out with you. What we see in this story, though, is what happens next. When Matthew tells this story, what happens next? Because it starts off when they arrived on the other side of the region at the Gadarenes, 2 demon-possessed men were coming from the tombs to meet them. They were so violent that no one could pass that way. So they've come from a safe place, through a storm, and now they've come to a place where 2 men are so violent that no one can be there. They say, "What do you want with us, Son of God? Have you come here to torture us before the appointed time?" So these men are possessed by demons. They are fierce. They are violent. People are afraid of them. And they come to Jesus, come down, and they go, "You're Jesus. Why are you here? Are you here to torment us before the time you take this earth back? Before it's your appointed time?" The demons are testifying to Jesus' divinity. Even the demons see him for who he is. The wind and the waves have seen him for who he is. And now they have this point in time. Verse 30. Some distance from them was a large herd of pigs feeding. The demons begged Jesus, "If you drive us out, send us into that herd of pigs." He said to them, "Go." So they went out and into the pigs, and the whole herd rushed down the steep bank and died in the water. Those tending the pigs ran off, went into the town, and reported all this to them, including what had happened to the demon-possessed men. They told them this story of this man who had come out and delivered these men. And all the pigs ran into the ocean and died. And instead of this town being concerned, going, wow, what a miracle, these two men have been delivered, it is now safe. You know, these two men who had been in this situation are now free. Verse 34 says, the whole town went out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they pleaded for him to leave their region. They were more concerned with their loss of livestock than they were about these two men being healed. They were more worried about their bank account than lives being delivered. But what a story the disciples had. They had been through this storm where they thought they were going to die, and Jesus got up and said, stop, and it was calm. And now they had the ability, now they had the situation where they could deliver two men from being possessed of Satan. What an amazing testimony. What an amazing testimony. Pastor Stanley last night at our CYM Live, and it's an incredible thing because we didn't talk about this week. We didn't talk about our sermons or our talks, but he took the talk last night. And it's amazing how God has a story. He has a plan. Because he told the story that I wanted to share to you today. That the disciples were with him, and Jesus says to them, I'm not going to be with you much longer. I'm going to have to go. And where I go, you can't come. But I want you to love one another. This is how people will know you're my disciples, when you love one another. And what does Peter say? Where are you going? He misses the love part, love one another. This is how people will know that you're my disciples, when you love one another. This is how people will know that you're my church, when we love one another. But Peter goes, but where are you going? Because if you're going anywhere, I'm coming. Jesus, if you're going to Egypt, I'm coming. If you're going back to Nazareth, I'm coming. If you're coming to Campbelltown, I'm coming. If you're going somewhere, I'm coming too. And Jesus says to him, Peter, verse 38, will you really lay down your life for me? I tell you the truth, before the rooster crows 3 times, you will disown me. You will deny me. Peter's heartbroken. He doesn't say, no, Lord, no, I'll never do that, because he knows. He's learned enough times that you don't tell Jesus that he's wrong. But he says, he's in this, I believe he's actually in this moment of grief, thinking, why would you think that of me? You are my life. You are my best friend. Why would you think that I would deny you? All the other disciples are going, well, Peter, you're not so good after all, are you? But then Jesus, in chapter 14, verse 1, says this: do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust or believe, as Pastor Stanley said last night, in God. Believe or trust in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would not tell you. And I go there to prepare a place for you. And when I go to prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you may be where I am. You know the way to where this place is I'm going. Jesus takes them back in this imagery that they all understand. Because in the Jewish tradition, when two young lovers meet, when their eyes catch each other across the room, And the first time the young man may go to the woman, how you doing? All of a sudden there's this chemistry or it may even be an arranged marriage. But there's this moment where both the families would come together and there's this moment of joining where they're saying these two will be married. And the father's house pays the bride's house what we know is a dowry. This is a promise. This is a commitment of, I'm going to betroth you. But then what happens is the son and the father go away. And the son and the father start to build a place for the young married couple to live in. Quite often connected to their house or on a part of the property. But the son and the father build this place. The son is the builder and the father is the foreman. And they go and build this place for this young married couple to live in, to be. And then when it's finished, when the roof's on, the place is painted, they've got the kitchen in there that the wife will like. Well, no. But all those things, it's not the block, but it's the block, Judea, I don't know. But in this, when everything's ready, the father says to the son, now it's time. Now it's time to go, and they have the wedding ceremony and they are joined in marriage. Jesus is taking the disciples in this time of grief, saying there's going to be a storm in your life. There's going to be grief that's going to happen. There's going to be times when you're going to doubt yourself. You're going to doubt me. You're going to doubt your identity and who you are. But in those times, remember, believe, trust. Because just like that boy, I'm going to prepare a place for you. And I am going to get things ready for you. And I am about to pay the dowry for you, which is the cross. We can trust. We can have faith that God is coming back for us. The Father, when the time is right, the Father is going to say to the Son, now, go. And so many times there is this correlation between the second coming and the wedding ceremony. So what do we get from this story? What do we get from this time? These two stories show us that storms were going to come in our lives. There are going to be hard times in our lives. Dr. John in Sabbath school this morning, or last week, the Sabbath school, they went through the timeline of David, and there were more storms in his life than there were good times. This is why I struggle and I'm against so much this prosperity theology, this theology to say if I just follow God, I'm going to be rich. If I just follow God, things are going to be fine. If I just follow God and faithful. You know, prosperity, God, the prosperity gospel is legalism. It's if I do, I will get. And in the center of legalism and the prosperity gospel is selfishness. It comes all the way back to Lucifer's original sin, which is that I should be God. The gospel tells us that you're going to have good times and you're going to have bad times. You're going to have times where you're at peace, and you're going to have times in your life that you're going to have struggles. But God is always there. God is always there. In fact, God is not just looking on, God is in the boat with you. God is in that fight with you. If you're suffering from an addiction, God is in that fight with you. If you're suffering from broken relationships, God is in that fight with you. Whatever your storm is, God is there. And he's with you. Philippians 4:11-13. I quite often hear this verse taken totally out of context. But 11 starts off that I am not saying this because I am in need. Verse 11, I am not saying this because I am in need. For I have learnt to be content, whatever my circumstances, whatever my lot, whatever my situation is, I have learned to be content. I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learnt the secret to be content in every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. Whatever my situation is, and Paul went through the lot. He had the highs, he had the lows. He's learnt to be content. He's learnt to be in that situation. And this is how I can do everything through him who gives me strength. I can do anything through Christ who strengthens me. Whatever my lot, whatever my storm, storms will come our way. Second point I get from these stories is, how do I handle the storm? If we come from the pretext of, oh, I expect everything to be rosy, I expect everything to be blessed because I've done all the blessing things, the questions that we normally ask is, why is this happening and when will it finish? Why is this happening and when will it finish? That's most times I answer this question. The disciples had just been through a storm. All of a sudden, this really confronting incident comes with these two demon-possessed men. They've seen the storm and they've been through it, so they can say, it's all right. Jesus is here. Jesus is going to do something. You see, through their storm, through their time of hardship and trial, they now have a testimony to help someone else. The ugly part of your story right now can be the best part of your testimony. What you are going through right now can help someone in their time of need. So instead of asking, why is this happening and when will it finish? Tell yourself, this is a storm and it's normal. God, what are you trying to teach me? God, what are you trying to show me? What are you preparing me for? And how can this situation help someone else? How can this situation help? Storms will come in our life. How do I handle it? How do I start this process? The third thing I want you to remember, church, the third thing we need to remember is that God is with us. God is with us in the storm. God is with us right there in the good times and the bad. We should remember that. Sometimes it's easy to remember God in the storm. When life is hard, it's sometimes, well, where do I got to go? I've got to go to God. I've got nowhere else to go. But remember, in the good times and the bad, God is there. And he wants to be in a relationship with you. He wants you to worship with him. God is with you in the storm. And my last point is that, church, God can turn your storm into a testimony. God can take this time that you're going through, when you're feeling alone, when you're feeling hurt and in pain, God can take this time and make it a testimony that can help someone else in their journey. Don't miss this point. Don't miss this time, because God's right there. Don't ask when will it end or why. Ask God, what are you trying to teach me? because God, my testimony can help someone else. This world, we live in a world church that is crying out for Jesus. We are living in a world that is suffering from disconnection, from addiction and pain, and they need your testimony. They need our story to say, hey, God is there. God is real. And in this storm, he's going to get you through because he's in that boat. Sing with me now, sing on the worship team as we sing, "It is well with my soul."